It's really nice to see that quite a few of you could join us in this session. I'm not sure how many people were able to follow us this morning and this early afternoon, and I know that speaking for myself, I thought the program was really exciting, and I was unable to decide, when to really focus in and how to maneuver with the technology. So I hope you all managed to get into this technology and find us, and happy that you could join us. My name is Lindley Chiwona Carlton, and I will be facilitating this session this afternoon. And once we get our resource person, Dr. Sakani Ngomane, we will be able to start the conversation. So a very warm welcome. I see Lou Botta over there. We turned off our cameras because we thought maybe that would give some kind of instability, and if we turned them off, we would have more stability. But it's nice to see you all. And welcome, Geraldine. I see you sitting in your lovely home. I think it is your home. Absolutely nice. The sun is shining today. And I'll just turn on my camera for a while, so at least you also get to see a little bit of my background, which is the sun is shining here in the countryside in Sweden. Yeah, so this is Lindley here. And Douglas, you can turn on your camera for a while. I know we did ask you to turn it off before, but we would love to see you too, since this is a very small group of people. So please do turn on your camera, Douglas.
Good afternoon. How are you?
We cannot see you very well. There you
Okay.
so, yeah, I think it's.
I'm using an iPad.
Yeah. Where are you? It looks like you're awfully blue over there with lots of buildings.
I'm using a virtual background of one of my buildings. I'm at home.
Okay. And where it says Zambia here. Are you in Zambia?
I am in Zambia. I'm in Lusaka right now.
Okay.
And that building I just finished last year in Lusaka. It's one of our sustainable buildings that we've done.
Fantastic. So you are an architect, or it's your...
I am an architect.
You're an architect. So you designed that and you built it as well, or?
No, I didn't build it, but I oversaw the building process, supervising, ensuring that everything is done to specification.
Yeah. And it's a sustainable building, you said.
It is sustainable building, light sensors, motion sensors to just regulate the use of energy in the building, and many other, including the use of necessary reflective solar glass, as you see in front, etc.
Okay, yeah. And no air conditioning, right?
No, we do have air conditioning because actually, nice as it looks, it's actually a repository. So it's going to have a very controlled environment for the documents.
Okay, okay.
And so we got to maintain certain atmospheric environment within to maintain books, other records. You need certain environment, otherwise after 10 years, they're stuck together and you can't use them.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. It's absolutely amazing and also so enlightening to see that, countries such as, South Africa or Zambia and, and others, Kenya, for example, Mali with its amazing, infrastructure and libraries, how they're able to build, first of all, to design and construct these types of buildings where we can, as you say, save a lot of our literature, but also the history that is so important going forward. So, yeah, kudos to you, Zambia.
Yeah, the trick is if we even look closer to even my left or both my right, you see horizontal blades on the side. We've also put very passive sort of shading devices, because the central area, which is a curved area, isn't air conditioned.
Yeah,
it's only the repositories, etc. So we've used passive devices to help to just control the solar build in the public area where it's not air conditioned, etc.
Yeah, brilliant. How much of the indigenous Zambian, construction of buildings, houses, homes did you put into this? And I'm thinking about, for example, you know, the thatching that we have traditionally used to build, you know, homes, and, you know, the use of what you call it, different types of earth or clay, and, you know, in terms of the architecture. How much of that went
Sorry,
into
I went off
thinking?
air, but I know you're asking how much of indigenous material do we use, right?
Yeah, and more the knowledge, you know, the knowledge, not just the materials.
Or the knowledge.
You've got to have.
Look, I was educated here, which is some 20-something, 30 years ago. Back then, they taught us about indigenous architecture. And today, it's a little different in terms of the knowledge. The local knowledge for the people that build it is there, and it's kind of passed on. It's an apprenticeship of sort. But when it comes to a person like us who come to practice, it's not there. It's not very well documented. One of our founding professors of my university, I wasn't there, in the mid 80s, actually documented that. Professor Schmitzer, it was German, he documented that, and then a few others have documented some of that. So there is some literature there, but how much of it is taught in a formal classroom environment, etc., I don't think there is that much. But last year, was it the other year, 2017 or 18, I'm also chairman of the Zambia Green Building Association. So okay. I practice sustainable architecture. In 2018, October, I spoke in Cape Town at the Green Building SA conference, so the last physical one. And I also spoke in the same year in Mauritius. And that's, in my presentation, I used the analogy of what you said, to say, our local material, like the clay, the thatch, the wood, are sustainable, are the most sustainable, because like in Zambia, like there are tribes and which are rural, who move from place to place. Either when they stay in an area, they stay there for a couple of years, and there isn't enough game to be hunted in the good vicinity, so they relocate and they leave those houses which were made from mud, and they just wash down by rain, and the grass goes back, and the environment is back to its original thing. That was my argument, my thinking. Yeah. But there is modern ways of using our typical.
Yeah. I see Geraldine has a hand up. Yes, please, Geraldine. I mean, we're already in the Q&A, which I think is fantastic. So we will reverse everything.
I just wanted to say, in the chat, Linley, they said they have found the doctor who's supposed to be speaking. Can you let her in?
Yeah, Linda's not the host.
We've got a host. There's somebody.
And I've sent them a private message, and she says she's waiting in the waiting room, and nobody to let her in. So if our host can hear us, please let Dr. Ngomane in.
I think AV8 is supposed to be the host.
Yeah, AV8. I'm also going to call Diane Linley to see.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Douglas, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I did see. I mean, we do need to bring this.
That's perfectly fine. I mean, it's a good, nice chart. So so you get a good number. I have to look at the stats back again of the very rural outlying buildings are built from earth and sticks and grass. So which is very easy to reintegrate into the ground once they've left it after a couple of years. But what is critical going forward, even as practicing architects with modern clients, is to see how we can use also sustainable, easily available material. Yeah. One very good example is what you just mentioned, the earth itself. There is a perception, obviously, earth material, which is just not quarry, gravel, or whatever, just earth to be used to build the blocks of my house where I'm sitting here, is for poor people or the people who can afford. And yet, from our backgrounds, there is, Kimberly, when you pick them, you do them in certain sizes.
Sorry, Douglas. Sorry, Douglas. Could you just hold that thought? Let me see if Dr. Sakani is able to hear us, and we will pick it up again.
I can hear you.
Yeah, wonderful, Dr. Sakani. Yeah, we have been.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and we have been anxiously waiting for you.
My apologies.
Yeah. No. Please do not apologize. I think the technology is beyond our limits, and so yeah. So maybe if everybody could turn their video.
I've never experienced challenges.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Geraldine. Can you hear us, Dr. Ngomane?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Please call me Sakani.
Sakani, okay. Thank you. So let us kick off this session. So a very warm welcome. I'm really pleased to see that we have a very nice, tight group. It's whereby I think everybody will get the opportunity to say something. So just to introduce this session, my name is Linley Chiwona Carlton, and I am based at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences here in Uppsala in Sweden. And I work with rural development issues. I hold an associate professorship within the subject of rural development. I was born in Malawi and have had the opportunity to collaborate and work with colleagues at Stellenbosch University, the opportunity, absolutely amazing opportunity to co-publish a paper which will be coming out with Professor Thuli Madonsela on COVID-19 and food security, a double-edged sword that is going beyond just health issues. So I'm really excited that we managed to do that. But here today, I have the absolute pleasure to welcome two very amazing persons. One is a resource person and the other is a respondent. And the first is the respondent is Dr. Sakani Ngomane, who's the Director of Agriculture Economics and Rural Development. I do hope you've had a chance to look at the bio. If not, I really recommend that you look at her bio, and she will say a little bit more about herself. And she will take 10 minutes to introduce and contextualize the issue of climate change and environmental sustainability. Thereafter, Dr. Sakani Ngomane's presentation will be responded to by Professor Oliver Ruppel, who is the Director of the Development and Rule of Law program at Stellenbosch University, but he's also a non-resident fellow at Fraunhofer Center for International Management and Knowledge Economy in Leipzig in Germany. And he will take another 10 minutes there to respond as well. And thereafter, we will have a Q&A. And here I hope that the presentation by our resource person, Dr. Sakani, as well as the response by Professor Oliver will stimulate us enough to have a candid conversation. And I'm glad that we, through the upset of the technology, we had an opportunity to listen to our colleague from Zambia, but also I look forward to listening to our two colleagues who are with us. And without further ado, and not taking up much time, I would like to invite Sakani to please give us her presentation. Now, Dr. Sakani, are you able to share your screen, or would you like me to do it?
Let me try.
Okay.
Let me try to, it will be easier to navigate from here. Can you see it?
Yes, please. Could you just go into slide mode? So if you go down, yeah, so that we can see a bigger picture of it in presentation mode. Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're able to see it that way. Okay.
Yes,
thank you. Yeah. Let me take this opportunity to thank you, Professor Lindley, for taking on this role of facilitating the session. I also want to extend a word of appreciation to Professor Thuli Madonsela and her team for inviting us, and for the participants to join us in this session. We are discussing under our session climate change and environmental sustainability. It is so important that if you look at the 17 SDG goals, climate cross-cut about 7 of those of the SDGs. We also hear from the World Economic Forum. This is a body that describes itself as committed to improving the state of the world, acknowledging that humanity faces a mass extinction event on a scale not seen in the last 65 million years. So this is a real situation. In the context of South Africa, we have situations of drought. We lie within a drought belt. Our economy is largely dependent on climate-sensitive sectors. Any potential change in climate has significant impacts on society and economy, and the UN acknowledges this. We have increases in temperatures and reduction in rainfall that threaten the productivity of our key sectors in the economy, with devastating impacts on livelihoods. I was keen to hear that Prof. Lindley is in the rural development sector. You know, that's where the most vulnerable in rural areas and informal settlements are hardest hit. To revive livelihoods in those areas is a significant challenge. So what COVID-19 has done was to magnify the risks faced by vulnerable groups and societies around the world, including ourselves. We have challenges of rainfall. I won't go into that, but you see the fluctuation numbers there. But what is key is that higher temperatures and reductions in rainfall, this situation is expected to continue for a while longer. Professor Olfi, I'm sure, will expand more on this, but the impact in the case of South Africa as a water scarce country is that we're facing even severe situations of depleted water resources, increasing number of droughts, and so on and so on. So there's a high risk of environmental, social, and economic vulnerabilities due not only to the scarcity of water, but other climate-related events such as wildfires. And I'm citing this as one of the key challenging areas in South Africa. Our country is dependent, the economy is highly dependent on climate-sensitive sectors, such as the agricultural and the forestry sectors. Increases in temperatures and reductions in rainfall threaten the productivity in these sectors, let alone issues around water scarcity, issues around felt fires, droughts, and so on. Tourism is another driver of the economy, not only in South Africa, but in the region as well. It is ranked 3rd in the world, our country, in terms of biological diversity. So cases of desertification caused by dry climate could potentially reduce that biodiversity capacity. It will further threaten the tourism industry. The increases in sea temperatures could alter migratory patterns of marine fisheries and increase the occurrence of harmful algal blooms, causing mass mortality of ocean life and other animals. Temperature increases and changes in rainfall patterns could also potentially extend the areas prone to diseases such as malaria, and related diseases. All this, particularly the last point on diseases, impact significantly vulnerable groups and settlement areas. It basically just exposed COVID has exposed the underbelly in these areas. Just this slide, I wanted to just share with you quickly the direct experiences that stays in memory, such as the extreme weather events, your cyclone Idao, that have resulted in loss of life and extensive damage across a number of Southern African region. Mozambique was hardest hit in this context, displacing over 70,000 people. In South Africa, in Limpopo in 2013, we saw the bursting of the Limpopo River when it burst its banks and claimed about 10 lives, and hundreds were left stranded. In KZN, in the Eastern Cape in 2019, many people lost their lives and some went missing after heavy floods and landslides and so on in the Durban area along that coastline. Recently, just in a few weeks ago, in the Free State, runaway fires destroyed 100,000 hectares of crops in those areas. Homes and barns were left destroyed. Hundreds of cattle had to be euthanized to relieve their suffering from extensive injuries sustained during the fires. In all these instances, and many others that I have not mentioned here, it is the vulnerable groups, in most cases farm dwellers and farm workers, that lose their livelihoods. Rebuilding livelihoods takes years, if ever in those, just look at any climate disaster zone and how long it takes for livelihoods to be recovered. The next slide just show quickly the pictures of the extreme events, the flooding in KZN on the top slides. At the bottom slide, you see the veld fires that are a constant threat, especially in the Western Cape and along the food belt. That is what is dramatic, along the food belt of the Free State, Northern Cape, and all that. The middle slide just shows that Cyclone Idao, how it hits so many countries across Southern Africa that are still striving today to recover livelihoods. The livestock, it's just an example of livestock that had to be euthanized following the damage of the fire. On the next slide, quickly, this is just a resource. I leaned a lot on the World Economic Forum work around the opportunities for the fourth industrial revolution in this climate space. The reason for that is because they put together, they dedicated a series in 2017, Publications for Earth, that sought to highlight the opportunities for Earth as presented by the fourth industrial revolution, opportunities for oceans, opportunities for sustainable emerging cities, opportunities for life on land, and so on. So this collective reference point could help give us some more insights in terms of what to critique and what to take on board. That is just a resource page. Just to highlight what one of the papers has identified as a key area of opportunity in this space presented by the fourth industrial revolution is the exponential increase in computing power, where human capacity to capture, store, and process data has been transformed to a degree impossible to conceive. Just the increase in percentage numbers of the cell phone subscriptions from 12% in just 2000 to 70% today. Smartphones has become a way of life with 6 billion around the world. This ever-accelerating growth in processing power is having a profound impact on our ability to collect and process complex data. Our challenge is how then do we transform, ensure accessibility of this data to everyone in society, to deal with issues of equality, address poverty challenges using this particular platform and available information. The second area that I'm highlighting under fourth industrial revolution relates to the bioeconomy. I chose this particular theme because in the Southern Africa region and in other areas within the continent, the nature the nature resources, the value of nature has not been unlocked to benefit everyone, especially communities that are deserving in this regard. And the fourth industrial revolution enables us to do this. Literature says in human history, the ability to understand and harness a full range of nature's biochemicals and to imitate the nature's biological functions and processes has remained limited. But now there's more technologies and science that are leaning towards unlocking the value of nature. So this is a space where we need to accelerate scientific work. We need to accelerate our technological innovation that helps researchers to map out what are the possibilities, what are the sequence for to replicate Earth's biological endowment to the benefit of many. So the fourth industrial revolution can help in this regard in terms of opening wide-scale innovation for scientific research to unlock this potential as we seek to address especially Goal 2, Goal 1, Goal 3, and Goal 5 of the SDG. Just some quick insights in terms of what needs to be done at a very practical level, basic integration of early warning systems, climate resilient development, incorporating that in our development agenda. I just cite a simple practical example that Mozambique applied when they were hit by Idaho, drawing from lessons from 2000, that it's important to evacuate people. You need to have evacuation plans. This goes with awareness raising, with early warning systems and all that. That is why it's so important. The weather and climate information is particularly critical for the agricultural sector, as we well know the dependency of that sector on reliable climate information. It is important to also overcome communication barriers, language, and platforms that we're using to communicate, communal radios and all that, as we communicate messages around weather forecasting, climate information for local and farming communities. In dealing with field fires, we need to maybe go back to the basics where the ecosystem was controlled, was designed in such a way that we could control field fires in our planning process and awareness raising programs. This is just the last slide. Things to consider going forward. I am constantly aware that impacted communities, whether it's displaced, victims of floods or field fires, you name it, they require food, shelter, water, basic services just to deal with issues related to SDG 1, basic services. We need to adopt a right-based approach because climate a lack of response to the impacts of climate change equates to climate injustice. So when we talk in a session where we're discussing justice, we need to adopt a right-based approach in assisting this community. There has to be collaboration. SDG 17 comes to mind here. Partnership for goals, collaboration, meaningful collaboration, co-creation of these technological innovations, building of trust between various stakeholders as we respond to the challenges or impacts of climate change. Our collective goal should be to reduce the country, the region, the continent as environmental, social, and economic vulnerability to the increased incidence of climate disasters due to climate change effects. We need to grow the inclusive bioeconomy. I believe so much in this because it's so linked to our traditional and indigenous communities where they can transform their livelihoods through nature-based solutions. So we need an inclusive bioeconomy. We need to generate incentives that are aligned to protect rather than to destroy our natural heritage. We need to ensure that innovators are actually safeguard this natural heritage for now and in the future. And in the case of South Africa, we have a very progressive adaptation strategy that has recently been adopted by Cabinet. The key is to implement that in response to climate change. We need to adapt and mitigate at the same time. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm sorry if I exceeded time, Professor Lindy.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sakani, for a fantastic and thorough presentation. I know that 10 minutes could never really do justice to this huge, all-encompassing topic on climate change and oh, now what was it again? Environmental sustainability. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, environmental sustainability. So thank you very much. And at this point, actually, I should say that I am really privileged and lucky to be having an amazing rapporteur with me, and that is Nolawandle Madde, who is an expert in water resources and management. And I think, Nolawandle, you have a lot of work cut out for you, looking at what is happening within this area, but also thinking about how we're going to capture the key points that we will be presenting in plenary. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Professor Ruppel. And maybe before that, Nolawandle, did you want to add something?
No, it's nothing. I've just been going through Dr. Tsakani's presentation and actually researching as I go along on some issues. So yeah, no, that's good.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah. So Professor Ruppel, you are now going to give us the opportunity to hear your response to this wonderful presentation by Dr. Tsakani. And of course, after your presentation, we will also invite the audience, the participants, to give some Q&A, and hopefully we'll get a wonderful conversation going on. So please, Professor Ruppel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. And let me just quickly switch on my camera just for a minute so that I can welcome everyone, our guests, our rapporteur, you, the chair, the facilitator, Professor Linley, and the resource person, Dr. Tsakani. Warm welcome to everyone. I'm going to switch off my video again, so perhaps you display something in the meantime. I just don't want to interrupt anyone's bandwidth.
Yeah.
So thanks once again, especially for Dr. Tsakani for setting the scene so nicely and so competently. And I can actually testify many of the facts that she has mentioned also by means of the experience that I have gathered as a coordinator in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, being responsible for Africa. I will spend a few minutes drawing some lessons from COVID-19 for the climate change agenda. COVID-19 provided an opportunity to reflect upon and to consider the implications of preparation when being confronted with a disaster of global proportion. The response to COVID-19 can serve as an example, in my view, of how we can either respond or continue to ignore scientific climate change warnings. So while wearing masks and social distancing had shown to be relatively inconvenient, and lockdown effects impacting on our economies, how will the climate crisis, the displacement of millions of people due to rising sea levels, lack of food security and water security. How is that climate crisis going to affect us on the way ahead? We must let science inform the political discourse, which in turn must inspire legislators, policymakers, and also procedures that can deal with what is most important, so that we do leave no one behind. Solutions to COVID-19, in my view, need to be aligned to those of the climate crisis for a global transformation towards more sustainability, resilience, equity, and what we hear for today, social justice. In the past months, some governments have listened to science and have reacted drastically and with legal measures to the coronavirus outbreak. It has become clear that those governments who listened had the comparative health advantage to those governments that didn't. And while the pandemic can hopefully next year be overcome with the help of a vaccine, unfortunately, there is no vaccine against the climate crisis. So now government action and economic incentives post COVID-19 will play a decisive role in the global CO2 emissions development. It is anticipated that governments and development banks will provide unprecedented levels of investment to stimulate battered economies and generate jobs. Now is the time to enact government policies to guide economies to a low carbon future at lower social, political, and financial costs than was the case pre-COVID-19. And as the climate crisis remains our biggest challenge, COVID-19 has shown us how vulnerable we are to such global emergency. And please do not forget that Africa is the continent most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, to which our globalized world has no borders. So the corona pandemic underlines the vulnerability of economic and social subsystems as a result of globalization. It is becoming clear that the manageability of the effects depends on actual social conditions. The crisis shows the importance of system-relevant sectors such as healthcare, social security systems, and food supply. The question is raised now, and once again, whether in principle, general well-being in a comprehensive sense is not more important than a focus on material prosperity. It should also be noted that other crisis phenomena, such as wars and arms trade, fragile statehood, unfair trade relations, and neo-colonial structures increase the vulnerability of societies. They need to be analyzed and considered in problem-solving efforts in order for transformation to sustainably succeed. Many of the prevailing principles and foundations of environmental and sustainability policy, such as the precautionary principle or the principle of leave no one behind, remain indispensable in such ambitious policy. Lessons from the corona crisis are nevertheless emerging, which make it seem necessary to question or supplement the foundations of environmental policy. More effective sustainability policy requires strengthening the nexus of environment and health. The fragility and vulnerability of the economy to crisis is reduced by strengthening the resilience of economic and social systems. The corona crisis highlights that systems should not be optimized for effectiveness alone, and that buffers are urgently needed to improve resilience. Resilience is only achievable when the requirements of the sustainability goals to leave no one behind and the ecological limits are respected. Structural justice means ensuring a good quality of life based on safe, basic supply for all people worldwide. Are you still there?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry,
we are.
I could just see some developments here on my screen. The solidarity of action as an expression of social resilience demands that all state, social, and private actors, insofar as they initiate or implement environmental and sustainability policy measures, must consider the effects of those measures, and all stakeholders must be involved. This requires adaptive governance as a result of constantly changing knowledge bases, which is becoming more important because of increasing needs to make decisions in the face of uncertainty. A competent state and international organizations are required for crisis management and to coordinate and implement appropriate measures to ensure a transformation to sustainability. Local level institutions are required to be involved. The potential of digitalization needs to be systematically exploited to the fullest extent possible in terms of environmental protection, but also with regard to essential socio-ecological transformations. In this respect, a new digital culture, which we are experiencing right now already, is coming, and it is needed. The crisis, the corona pandemic, as well as the environmental crisis, necessitate that sustainability becomes the center of political action. And the priority must be to ensure resilience of the society. The state is obliged, because of various crises that are ongoing at the same time, to also improve justice frameworks, regulatory frameworks, procedural access to justice frameworks. This needs to be substantiated and put into operational terms for individuals to come to the fore. South Africa has implemented various national climate policies, and Tsakani has already mentioned on some of them, to accomplish its pledged nationally determined contributions to contribute to the objectives of the Paris Agreement and to fulfill their obligations under the 2023 stocktake. Recent climate litigation efforts in South Africa, such as in the Thabametsi case, make reference to the international law instruments and the national efforts to achieve them. Unfortunately, it already becomes apparent that not only in South Africa, the implementation of those policies will leave a significant emissions gap towards the achievement of the Paris goals. To fill these gaps, the law will eventually need to serve as a bridge between scientific knowledge and political action. The right degree of legal regulations and shifted incentives is crucial in motivating the required action for more collective success. Climate law is the instrument to incentivize and penalize, while at the same time reforming markets, turning away from business as usual by means of social, legal, environmental, technological interaction. And lastly, and most importantly, perhaps climate justice, as has been rightfully stated recently by the drafters of the Climate Justice Charter, is the struggle of our time and our historical task as South Africans, as humans, and as part of the wider Living Earth community. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver, for a fantastic and thought-provoking response to the presentation that was made by our esteemed resource person, Dr. Tsakani. You bring up many key issues, and I think in your response, what really stands out and what you bring to the fore is the issue of climate justice, or the lack thereof of climate justice, and the various frameworks and agreements that South Africa finds itself in or must commit itself to, and then to the global agreements such as the Paris Agreement, and how that will connect to the local agreements and charters that South Africa is in. And your last words where you say, lastly, climate justice is not without its challenges. And I think it's these challenges that maybe, present itself for us as the audience to have a conversation around them. And I see Geraldine is here with us, and also Douglas, you're here with us. Douglas, you did share with us a little bit about how you're an architect and you are building or rather planning and constructing buildings that are taking issues of climate and sustainability into context. And I didn't get the chance, Geraldine, to find out about what you work with, but perhaps before we give the floor for um, everybody opening up, maybe Geraldine, you could tell us a little bit about what your interest is and how it fits into the presentations that we have listened today. So please, Geraldine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lily, and hello to everybody that wasn't on that I heard earlier. Basically, I'm involved and I'm representing Rotary International, which is a part of civil society. And I think what we've heard from Dr. Tsakani and from Professor Ripple today is the absolute importance of the partnerships between government who makes the law, working together with civil society so that we can keep people aware. And what I think is essential is that we need to be looking to see, while we pressurize government, as Oliver was saying, to make the law, the problem is that we also have to look for incentives to encourage the person actually on the ground. It's fine for governments to put in law, but if we haven't got anybody on the ground who understands all the impacts, which the two of you have shared with us before, we have a major problem. And so one of the areas that Rotary works with, I'm sure most of you know, it's an international organization. One of the things that we work with is young people to try and ensure that we're working on projects that are making them aware of the kind of crises that we currently have in the country, whether it's introducing an educational program, whether it's putting environmental camps in place, or whether it's pulling together the Rotarians in Southern Africa, which Lou and Douglas and I are all involved in, to try and unify the work that we in civil society are doing in order to support what is being done by the researchers and to support the implementation of government policy.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. I think you bring to the conversation an area which I think has been touched upon maybe very briefly due to lack of time, and that is the role of bringing in young people and making them aware, and this awareness creation and how important that is. Before I come back to the speakers, may I just give Warren and Douglas a chance to raise their observations, because I know that we'll be running out of time. So very, very quickly, Warren, because you haven't been able to say anything yet. Please, Warren. You can unmute yourself. Are you there?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I see you there, but you're not unmuting yourself. So I'll go on to Douglas. Douglas, would you like to comment in relation to, and keep it short, because I see there's Leo Bota who has also joined us, please.
Yeah, thank you. The problem statement has been defined by both the speakers to do with the challenges that we have with the environment. But what we need, the aspect of how do we get to coexist between our biosphere or environment and ourselves as humans is what we have to explore and work on very deeply. And that carries in itself very many angles, from what we do to control the atmosphere, our immediate atmosphere, by having responsible air pollution or use of materials that do not pollute the environment, etc. And that comes with what you just alluded to. And what we're doing, I came here as a Rotarian. Yes, I'm also a past district governor. What we're doing in Rotary just recognize supporting the environment as a seventh area of focus, besides everything we do with health and education. But the one thing that we know is that for as long as our children and the people around us are not aware of the changes, or are not aware that it is important that when I walk out of a room, for example, I should turn off my light, or have a light sensor, or use my water effectively, or harvest my water. That's something we need to teach people, and it's quite wide from an early age. Like we teach our kids from an early age to wash their hands and practice certain hygiene. It's also, we have to teach them ways that we do things that are friendly to our environment. That's what I can say. But from our perspective of identifying the problem, which COP has been doing for ages. By the way, my daughter is an alumni of COP. At 11, she went to COP in Copenhagen. So we are we're an environment family. From what they've been teaching them, and through the United Nations, they've been teaching them that. But at a certain point, you see that there isn't that integration with the rest of the environment, so that it becomes a second nature, like washing our hands is a second nature, and the rest of the things. And there are many other things that we can do to create a sustainable environment. We cannot change completely what we've been used to doing, but we can begin to develop an attitude and a mentality, even from what I do for a living, which is architecture, for a client, a corporate organization to understand that they can spend 20% more on their building and save 50% in the next 50 years. It won't happen immediate. But that is friendly to the environment. Thank you.
Yeah. No,
so
thank you very much, Douglas. Yeah, no, but you raised two very important issues there that I wish to pick up on. And one is the issue of, changing attitudes and being aware, especially by the young. And you link the aspect of, second nature of washing hands and hygiene. And this has been very important in the context of COVID-19 as well. So when we're thinking about the environment, we should think about it just like it's second nature to us to wash our hands and think about about our personal hygiene. And I think that's really key. And the issue of developing an attitude that recognizes that the environment is not something out there, but it is part and parcel of us all. Now, I'm wondering, Lou, you have not been given an opportunity to say anything. Would you like to please say something? And then I will give the word back to Sakani and to Rupal to give us some concluding thoughts in the interest of time. Please.
Thank you, Lindy. I'm going to go back to basics in a sense, if I may, and I'm also a Rotarian along with Geraldine and Douglas. But I think what we're dealing with, and we've spoken a lot about, is climate change. And with respect, not enough about environmental sustainability, what that is, and the lack of environmental sustainability we have in the world today. We overutilize our resources and we overpollute. And I think that's a basic concept, or those are basic concepts that we must draw or pull back from. And basic issues is what does environmental sustainability mean? Climate change is a result of the lack of environmental sustainability. And I think in education, it's important that people understand what environmental sustainability is. And it's an equilibrium in the whole system on Earth, and it's got to continue indefinitely. We are overreaching ourselves, and we cannot continue to do that. And I think that it's a frightening prospect, but it's something that's got to be taught, and people have got to realize we can't live the way we used to, and it's in turn a lifestyle crisis that we're also facing in terms of like we are facing a climate crisis. There's a lifestyle crisis that's got to be addressed as well. So sorry, it's very much back to basics, but I believe we mustn't forget where we come from or why we've got a climate problem, a climate crisis. So that's really what I'd like to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lou. I missed the first thing you said. It's about overutilizing and overpolluting.
Overpolluting.
Yeah.
we're over consuming resources, both renewable and non-renewable resources, over consuming and over polluting.
Yeah, yeah, no, very, very two fundamental issues, and I like your last words. It's really about a lifestyle crisis, and how we look at this lifestyle crisis, and then what sort of changes do we as individuals, but collectively also, something you mentioned, Geraldine, in terms of partnerships. Yeah. Um, now I would like to give the word to Sakani and Oliver, but I was wondering if Nolwandle, you had anything that you would like to comment upon before I give the word to our two resource persons. Nolwandle? Yeah.
My unmuted. Yes.
Yes, you are.
Sorry. Actually, was what just looking at Takani's presentation and the insights of what needs to be done, and I like the first part of it, where let's advance and adopt right-based responses, because I mean I work with water a lot, and with water you have right to water, which is enshrined in the constitution, but you also have water rights, which is you apply for a license to get water, and these two often collide. I was working with a community that during a drought, that people with rights to water have what people with water rights have more power over the people who are usually just small communities, rural communities. Uh, we impact a lot to the rights, so to the rights of others with our rights that were given by the law, whereas the rights enshrined in the Constitution of South Africa in particular are often trampled upon when it comes to issues of climate change, like a drought in KZN or Cape Town or Makanda, wherever. But then I do appreciate that we do need that rights-based approach and response to dealing with the climate crisis. And I quite concur with that. That actually resonated a lot with me. I agreed with a lot of what you said, Dr. Gomani, but that part of it is what really I feel it's all about. Yes.
Thank you, Nolwandle. Yeah, I see we have a few more minutes, and I just wanted to bring in something to the two of you as you move to concluding for us. And Sakana, you mentioned about in looking forward, there were several things you mentioned, but this one particular thing is about how the bioeconomy could intersect with the fourth revolution, which is the fourth industrial revolution, which is that of communication, connectivity, and ICTs in general. And I got to think that, while the fourth industrial revolution does provide a lot of opportunities, especially if you're looking at phone connectivity, whereas before we needed landlines, now we can do with a mobile phone and a smartphone, that it also does, create some other demands, unexpected or unwanted demands, such as with that, we need more energy, we need more electricity, and that electricity might result in us looking for more coal or oil or solar panels, and that might need more metals, or water, and that means more dams and more, conflicts. And of course, the metals, it means also that we're looking at coltan and other minerals. And then the lifespan of some of these technologies are very short. So a cell phone, gets completely full because you have to upload and update. And within 2 years, you have to, throw it away or buy a new one. And there's a whole aspect of waste management and recycling. So I was just, bringing that in. And when it comes to the SDGs, Professor Oliver, I thought a lot about how with climate change, while we're looking at partnerships and we're looking at co-creation and adaptive governance, that the whole area which we had in the last session related to what can universities do and the importance of tacit knowledge, both in the universities, but also just out in society. And herein comes organizations such as the Rotary and civil society. How could we combine all these to really have not just a focus on climate variability, but more also as, changing our mindsets on the nature and the built environment around us. So please, back to you all. Who'd like to start?
If I may start.
Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
If I may start, first, just to say it's always exciting to listen to Prof. Rupal, how he weaves this whole nexus between climate response and COVID and law reform. I like that. Which takes me to your question, the last question Prof. Lindsay directed to me around the bioeconomy and intersecting that with the fourth industrial revolution. I think the opportunity that a sustainable environment attitude and outlook towards in policy formulation presents an opportunity, in the context of law reform, to deal with this crisis. We have an opportunity to kind of be prescriptive in a way, in a consultative manner, in terms of what are the marketing opportunities, how do we involve marginalized communities, how do we involve youth in this response action, what kind of energy sources, renewable energies, renewable energy to be used to beef up this fourth industrial revolution. So we have a great opportunity. Speaking of disposal, waste disposal, great experiences from other countries. In Singapore, for instance, somebody's waste is another person's resource type deal. So how do we improve our waste management policy frameworks and all that to ensure that we recycle more, embracing this green revolution. On the issue of rights, the right to food and water and housing, I think, a conflict between those who already have rights that they gained in the past, like water rights and all that, as compared to constitutional rights. Against, it calls for collaborative response between civil society, in particular, young people in that space, to ensure that the right to food, to water, to housing, as reflected in our constitution, is actually realizable to many. Otherwise, that's great. I enjoyed the discussion. I love the notion of coexisting, the biosphere coexisting with us. How do we make that possible? We need to go back to the basic. So if one of the recommendations from this section should be for us to put forward an en masse program around developing our second nature, going back to that basic, to develop this second nature where we live in synergy between the biosphere and us as humanity. It's how the Rio Convention actually framed the global response to environmental sustainability way back before climate change.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Sakane. Oliver, your last words, and we will need to close up, so they're telling me.
Yes, thanks so much, Chair, and also to to the comments and questions and so on. I think Lou made a very important point about environmental sustainability. We need a reset. We need a structural reset in order to internalize what that means. And that means that we must understand the limits of nature. We must understand the value of nature, and we must understand the economy of nature. And only if we understand that, we can start to prioritize our interests. Because since the Industrial Revolution, we have actually neglected the most important interests available, namely the ones that lead to our survival as a whole, as a human environment. And we must learn what subsidiarity means. That means we may have personal interests, material interests, but that need to be subsidiary to the global interests, to the survival of people. And that's where the solidarity issue comes in. And we have to look beyond borders because we can only resolve these problems if we tackle them from a universal perspective down to the ground. And I'm not saying that not everyone in the most hidden village must be involved, but that cooperation level has to be universal. And there, I think it is key to involve everyone, all the organizations. I mean, just the wealth of capacity we have at university level. How many universities do we have around the world? If we would just, link all these universities around environmental sustainability, around climate change, together with international organizations like Rotary, like the UN, like name it, there are quite a number, the World Economic Forum. But we need platforms, and these platforms, they have to speak to each other and involve the youth and change our attitudes. They have to, contribute to that reset that we need. And rights are good, but with rights come obligations. Yeah. And if you ignore that, if you only look into the law book to seek for your rights, you must be mistaken, because the right to water is in the first place the obligation to protect the water resources for the general public. And I think in terms of SDGs, a lot has been said. The cooperation issue for me is key. And I think that civil society is also a major player. And I believe in the strength of academic diplomacy, leading away the power from politicians that have, during the course of COVID-19, also in many instances failed our trust, but where intellectual capacity can be built. And I think in that regard, I would just lastly like to mention Stellenbosch University is a wonderful place, and it has just decided 2 years ago to establish one of the world's climate schools, an initiative under the World Economic Forum that created in 2018 what is called the Global Alliance for Universities on Climate. And there are 12 universities in this alliance, and Stellenbosch is one of them. And there should be many more. But to have a climate school where all the faculties, where all the centers, where all the experts linked to the society as a whole, with all the students as ambassadors, could promote that new mindset, together with what we have on the ground also is the big data school, talking about transformation and 4.0. I think these two initiatives can break ground. And I'm sorry for having spoken so long, but I really appreciate also the inputs from Douglas and from Geraldine, and this is a discussion that could well continue.
No, thank you very much. Sorry, did you still have some more things to add, Oliver? No?
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. I just wanted clarity because I was taking notes. You said that Stellenbosch University is one of those universities where you have a climate school and you belong to the global universities in climate change. Is that right? Or
Yes, the Global Alliance for Universities on Climate. It's called GAUC, GAUC, an initiative created under the World Economic Forum in 2018.
Okay, so this is 2018. Because I think this really ties in very well with the last session that we just had. What is the role of universities? And also how we as universities should not be in our silos, and we should be thinking outside of our silos and then going on to the very, I think, and last words, fundamental SDG, which is really SDG number 17, about the partnerships. And I think if we think more of partnerships, crossing not just the globe, whether it's the global south or the global north or the east or the west, but it's also transcending all these different sectors, the rich and the poor, the rural and the urban, all different types of classes, different types of knowledge, whether it is implicit or it's the explicit knowledge, whether it's tacit knowledge. I think too often we're just looking towards a certain type of formal knowledge and thinking that that's the knowledge that will give us the solutions. I wish we had more time. We need to go back into a break and then go back into plenary. First of all, I really would like to thank our esteemed speakers, Dr. Sakani, for giving us the background and to this very important social. So I'd like to really thank Oliver for coming in and giving a response, and more importantly, for concluding remarks that the two of you have given. And to our participants who have been with us, thank you for your contributions. And before we go, I know Norwandle has a lot to try and catch up now with. Can we just put on our cameras, because I want to do a screenshot and make sure that I put this in our presentation. So, yeah, so Geraldine and Sakani. Warren, are you there now? Yes, you finally got in. And AV8 and Sakani, please, could you put your video on? I don't see you yet. Sakani?
You don't see me?
No, just put on your camera, your video. Yes, now I see you. And our technician
Now
in
you
the
see me.
background who has been incognito the whole time. Are you going to join us? AV8? Would you like to put your camera on, your video? Please, AV8? Nope. Okay, so we do without them. So smile, put on your best candid smile, and I'll just be taking several print screens, and hopefully we will have something that we can use. I do hope I got something. Let me just check, because it's since it's being recorded, I don't see what's happening. It would be such a pity if I didn't get. Yes, I did get it. Fantastic. And everybody looks amazing.
Okay.
Yes. Are you sure you're happy?
Oh,
Smile
that's
again.
good to know.
Yeah.
Smile. Let's try this one. So thank you very much, everybody. And we see you in plenary. And to our esteemed speakers, thank you once again. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, Prof.
Thanks, Chair. Much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to thank the Chair and everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.